Then I'm right. Thank you. And we would like to thank our delegation from Father Home School for coming to speak to us about the need for the area. We will continue with our meeting. We'll go back to number 5, which is policy setting addition. Right, so I will turn that over to Policy Chair, Trustee Birch.
They, at the last board meeting, they wanted us to go over the policy 7. So we did that as well as the appendix. There was lots of debate. We did some changes and we have some drafts made up, and Charlie's gonna go revise them a little bit so that we can have them at our next board meeting.
Okay, but we have some changes to the policy, some of our statements. Okay, so Mr. Bishad, or
that the board approved the policy 7 for first reading as presented.
Okay. Let's see the changes if we can. It's on the screen. Cool. So if you trustees can have a look for the first consideration for first reading. Okay, and that's about it on the area. Just so that's the motion. Any discussion? And in this motion, this is going back to both finance and policy to look at. Right? Because there will be an impact on finance. Is that what we're looking at? All right. There are no further comments or questions. We will call the question. All in favor for the first reading? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. All right, we will go into our executive and administrative report. The board chair's report. There are any questions or comments?
Sorry, I don't have a report.
To yours? You didn't download a new one.
My apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Superintendent's report. And we always know that yellow highlighted ones. Okay, any question or comments from the chair? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question about number 6. I wondered if you were able to find an Indigenous education coach. Is it still in the?
So that advertisement is still open. This time we're still in the process of recruitment.
Is that a big pool or how long? Yeah, advertisement going for?
What is the close date on that?
17.
Oh, 17, okay, 2 days from now, okay. All right.
We do have a number of applicants.
Okay.
So promising ones. That's great.
So that's a big pool, okay. All right. Dr. Miller, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just trying to count the number of bullets.
From where?
Okay, under number 3, fourth bullet,
Number 3 for
papers in 11. I think that was- I don't know what the acronym is, but SIOP, what I would actually say. What,
the instructing observation project.
can we get a little bit of an explanation as to what that might be or what that would look like?
Sure.
So this is a strategy for English language learners. So it's basically a process, the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol is a process to use to help support English language learners within the classroom. And Chris Puro attended that, and then she works with the LSFs to then work with their staff on the strategies.
That is a provincially used protocol, so it's not just local to Star Catholic, it is something across the province as a recommended strategy.
Thank you.
Any highlights on the Children's Autism Conference?
So the SLS team attended. They all attended and they said it was excellent. And they all got wonderful strategies for their rules in terms of working with students with autism and on various stages of the spectrum.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that makes me happy because we have a lot of autism diagnosis in that spectrum.
Yes.
Now very prevalent. I don't know why. I've seen a lot of young kids with these spectrums. Thank you. Any okay, go ahead, talk to me.
Under number 5, the very first bullet that speaks to Alberta Education Sessions on pilots for Star Catholic. What came out of that? What possible pilots might Star access in regards to mental health and services?
So I'll speak to that. There are 2 pilot projects that we heard about from Alberta Education. Where in March, they'll contact us with further information. But the first one is an integrated approach where the communities of Leduc, Wetaskiwin, and Ponoka, in each of those communities, there will be one school that will have a wraparound support. So it will include a mental health professional, some RCMP support, also some after-school care is another component, and a phys ed specialist. So the interesting part about that is they're piloting some of these projects across the province in different communities. What is yet to be determined is it'll either be a partner school. So in Leduc, for example, it'll either be Blackgold or us. In Ponoka, it'll be us or Wolf Creek. In Wetaskiwin, it'll be us or Wetaskiwin Regional. So we don't know yet which of those divisions will receive kind of the pilot schools, one school only in each of those communities. So that is what that program is about, and that is a 3-year funded program to try to support students and mental health needs. They're typically looking for the school with the most socioeconomic status, the highest need, I guess you would say. The second program is, I'm not sure if you've heard of Casa House, but it is typically, it's been in metro locations. They want to move those into smaller communities and follow a similar model. So what they will do is they'll, in our division, it'll only be in Wetaskiwin. One school in Wetaskiwin will have a classroom. So a classroom is either a grade 4 to 6 classroom, a 7 to 9 classroom, or a high school classroom. There'll be one classroom in the community of Wetaskiwin. Again, which division hosts that classroom is yet to be determined. Again, this is what I said in March, they'll be contacting us to kind of talk about next steps. But again, students from both divisions, as they transition usually from more intensive supports, as they move back to a regular classroom, they'll stop at CASA classroom. And students from either division will be able to access that classroom. So it'll be a joint program between the 2 divisions to wrap around those students with those needs in the community of Wetaskiwin only.
So help me understand, sorry, Go ahead, trustee Miller. Go ahead, Williams.
Oh, I have more too, but it's different subjects.
So different circuits, okay then. So with the integrated support, what's the makeup of that team?
That team is a mental health professional, a
Yes, yeah.
police, local policing, a phys ed specialist, and after-school care.
And that's
That is the kind of the wraparound there. Now, they'll also partner with those organizations within each of those authorities, so the health region, for example, but all of those individuals will be housed in that one school. So it's meant to kind of this came out of a pilot in Calgary. That was, has been successful down there, so they're moving it across the province to see if there's some possibility of expanding that service elsewhere on an ongoing basis.
okay. And then CASA is coming with their whole CASA setup into
One classroom in that
One
community, and they're not sure, it'll be one classroom, it'll be a 4 to 6 classroom. Or a junior high classroom or a high school classroom, only one in the community of Wetaskiwin. We don't know yet, so it won't be a 4 to 12 classroom, it'll maybe a 4 to 6 classroom in Wetaskiwin. In a different community, it might be a 7 to 9 CASA classroom. So we just had an introductory session last week with the ministry officials, so more will be coming on that, but we don't even know if it'll impact us directly as a division, but we'll have access to services hopefully. Definitely to the CASA classroom.
No, I'm excited about that, and hopefully they have the professionals and the support to buy it. Right, but that will be beneficial to some of our communities. Yeah. Thank you. All right, go ahead, trustee Miller.
Thank you. In regards to same under number 5, bullets 3, 4, and 5, just a quick comment. I'm happy to see the not new movement, but seems to be a focus area within this report of building capacity within leaders and according to the SLQS.
LQS.
LQS, yeah. The letters in the right order, so thank you. In regards to the last bullet of curriculum, there's professional development for the new curriculum. So I'm just wondering what the time commitment or time out of the classroom has been or will be to provide professional development around any new curriculum for the fall, or what cost the division has incurred for that process.
Did you want to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, so K-3 had 2 sessions last spring. So any teachers within K-3, then they had a session this fall, and they will have another session come February, March. The option will be for them is to essentially create or co-create a lesson, and then, a unit plan, and then take a lesson from that unit plan and use it in their classroom and have a colleague come and observe or help with the lesson, however they might like. And then also then to have that colleague come back to their classroom. So kind of a feedback loop between colleagues. But that will be that section part will be optional. We'll try to sell it as much as we can. And then 4 to 6 had 1 session for the phys ed and wellness piece. And that was in the spring. And now we will be bringing them back for another session come this spring-ish, like April, May, to then be ready for September. So the costs typically have been covered by Alberta Education with their grant for the new curriculum. And we've put it all to some time. And so the teachers have been coming in for professional development, and then those costs essentially are covered through the grant. So that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the last part of that, we're waiting on the new curriculum before we roll out a plan for next year. I think that was also part of your question.
Yeah.
So we don't have a plan for next year, I don't believe yet. We're waiting for that new curriculum, correct?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just and this is part of number 4, is the last bullet. I've just been curious about the continuous school improvement meetings. Could you just enlarge just
So in the division, we have school operations model, so both assistant superintendents oversee half the schools in the division and supervise those administrators directly. So we have 3 times a year a continuous school improvement meeting with each of the administration from each school. So both assistant superintendents will meet with those school admin. There is a set agenda, but the idea is to continuously be moving, as the name suggests, towards improving and making our schools the best schools that they can be. So it's a process that we've set up, and it's been ongoing for many years.
So there's a lot of actions that come out of those meetings. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have 2 more. Under number 6, the second bullet talks about the guide to relationships and learning with the Indigenous people of Alberta, and that it is a resource. Where can we as a trustee access that? Is it just through the CAS website, or is?
Yeah, I think that's your bullet, hey, Tardy, can you speak to it?
Yeah, so it's through the CAS website. It's a resource for educators there to access the information.
Is it open to general public or?
I
is it
usually
member?
go in through membership. I haven't tried not. I'm not saying that it isn't, but it'd be worth trying.
Would that be something we could have access to in print form or email or something? I would like to sit down and read that. So
It's very
Is that
interactive. It's interactive. There is some print though. It wouldn't be the full benefit of the resource, but I can look into that for you.
thank you. My last item is number 7, second from the bottom. Low incident grant referrals with Mandel associated to expedite assessments. Feel a little lost when I read that. Can I have an explanation?
Sure, so with this low incidence and the psychological assessments, those are specific grants that we received this year. And Lori to talk maybe a little bit about those.
Sure. So there was again another grant from the government, and in regards to low incidence, which means like deaf and hard of hearing or vision impaired, etc. Yeah. So we did have consultants working with those students, but this grant helped us to increase our services and as well as assessments, so any kind of psychological assessments. So we applied for, I believe, 63 students to be assessed, and we received funding for all of them. Excellent. Yeah, yes, it's wonderful. So, but now it's the whole process to work with, so the company that is basically supervising this process is Mandel and Associates. And so they are subcontracted to other companies, so the process is a little bit discombobulated in terms of, you know, how they connect with us. Sometimes they connect with me, sometimes they connect with Chris, sometimes with the school. So we're just kind of keeping track of all of that and ensuring that the students that we applied for are getting the services.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much.
I just have one more question. As far as number 6, the first one, it's so you've scheduled a meeting. Remembering about the First Nation trustee, is that meeting coming up very shortly? About a trustee?
Yes, so just let me have a quick look at my calendar here. So on March 9th, I'm meeting with administration from Muskwagees to just got a random call from them last week asking to meet again to discuss the First Nations trustee. So a meeting has been set up for March 9th to have further conversation.
So we look forward to hearing.
Yeah.
About that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Based on those assessments and something that came up, so you remember about vision impairments or colorblind students. Do we have anything on the books that supports assessing and determining some of those how do I put it? Some of those impairments very early in the stage. Like if a kid about grade 1, grade 2 is colorblind, how do we know? Sometimes we don't know until they are.
Right? That's a good question. I really, I don't know.
You don't know.
No, I don't know that, particularly with color blindness, I'm not certain. So we
Yeah.
can find out, yeah.
So as my teacher time
Yeah.
in the primary grades, I was able to identify as teachers, as many of our teachers are, those students who may be colorblind, and there are lots of screeners where you're showing them pictures and can they see the image in the picture or not. That teachers can and do use, I can speak to from experience. And if the students are struggling with those images, you would refer them to their medical doctor for food. So it's a quite helpful tool that classroom teachers in primary can use and have used.
That was something that came up during our visits last week, and I was like, because we know hearing assessment is done right, but nothing for the eye. And then some of us are colorblind at our old age, right? Before we realize. Hey, thank you.
I graduated like 2 months ago, I was colorblind. So there.
Help by I was answering the question about identifying that they
Yeah,
are, right? You know, the first step is certainly identifying that they are, and then their educators would
adjust.
adjust.
Yeah, there would be typically like some adjustment accommodations for the students, right? So that, you know, they're providing, let's say, reading material that colors or in the colors that they can see that.
All right, thank you. That's something. So probably during some of your discussion with some of your partners, make it known an area to start looking at. Thank you. Okay. We will move to Secretary Treasurer's reports. Okay, questions, comments? Go ahead, Trustee Miller.
Under financial and risk management, first bullet, talking about division cap on unrestricted and operating reserves. Was there any new information other than what was discussed in finance within the finance committee? Or is that what that was?
In terms of new information, I guess what we looked at is moving forward for schools, how should they be equipped, because we have this division of cap. Working with the superintendent, what we've introduced to the schools is putting a cap on their undesignated operating reserve funds. So if they have surplus funds, in some cases, those schools have designated them for replacement of the bus or for a photocopy or other pieces of equipment. In many cases, they haven't done that designation. Historically, what we've done is we've just rolled surplus funds over. At the end of the last fiscal year, we had almost $1 million in school-based surplus funds, not related to school generating funds. So looking at that, and in discussion, what we've looked at is put a 2% cap on what they could carry forward as undesignated unrestricted funds. And what we're looking for specifically is that if they're going to designate it, then it has to be a capital item. So setting up surplus funds for capital, we would exclude that from their cap. But now our schools in their planning for next year will have to look at whether they are within their cap in this year of that 2%. And that our preliminary estimate puts the total for the division would be somewhere around $600,000. And our overall divisional cap is around $2 million. So I think that brings it much more in line with where we would expect schools to have for surplus funds. But certainly starts to set up the administrators start looking at that. Along with that, when we calculate, we talked a bit about timing. In order to be responsive to that, we backed up 2 things. One is that we're looking to calculate the surplus deficits for schools at the end of May. In order to do that, we have to say that their cutoff for expenditures for this current year, they're cut off on the April 30th. So any expenditures that they generally have for after April 30th will be charged against next year's budget. There are some parameters and we'll have to look at certain specific cases because of timing issues, but that's essentially what we're looking at. in order to do two things. One is to analyze where each school is in a way that the division can be respond to its quality gap. One thing that we've said to schools with regards to that gap is that if you're over, it will be returned back to the division, and we will look at it from a divisional perspective. The goal being that resources are retained at the division and not remitted back to the province.
Any? Okay.
Just had one question about transportation. Hayden Valley has a critical shortage. Has that been alleviated to?
As far as, I wouldn't say it's alleviated, but we are continuing operations in Drayton Valley where they landed up with at a time where it looked like they may have to cease operations at one of the routes because they did not have a driver in place, a permanent driver in place.
But now we don't have to cease that.
No, at this point in time, they found, and my understanding is that they have found a permanent driver to put onto that route. So I'm still waiting for the contractor to formally advise me that we're not looking to have a more serious circumstance.
It's good. I think that we have to cancel a route.
Yeah. There is driver shortage within the province, and you also had an email from the education, right? But that is an ongoing issue, and especially in our rural areas. Now it's hitting the big cities as well.
And we continue to provide onboard advertising for drivers and in communities because we face it across our division with our contractors. And at times we'll have maybe heard within the community where there's have to be a double run. That we didn't have a driver in the afternoon, so the kids were held at the school until one bus had finished its route, and then they picked them up in the second route after that. We try and do that where possible. With some of our more rural areas or where we only have single one or two buses, so that's not even possible to support transportation.
So mine is on the facility, the modular at Sacred Heart. Is it all really Wi-Fi, everything settled now?
As far as I know, we have full occupancy and the school is operating within that classroom.
Thank you. Any comments, question? All right. Thank you all. We will move into our business item, and the first one that is 6.1, the LACOE boundary fund formation and transportation. And we all heard from our delegation from LACOE, so I will open that up for our discussions and debate. Yep. All right, who will lead us? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the trustee from the area.
Trustee from the phone. I can certainly understand the parents' concern, and I feel our school would really miss these parents. These parents are very involved. That's our school chair and our school fundraiser. And also they really value Catholic education, and they think they're now been used for the public school. I think something that's really important that we support as much as we can. I understand that there's a lot of financial implications as far as the transportation, but I personally would like to see it provide transportation.
Dr. How can you give us an update on your last meeting with the community? That was just last week or 2 weeks ago?
That was at the end of January.
The end of January. Yeah. How was that?
It was good. We had a nice attendance at the meeting. There's some frustration, obviously, about the decision from Wolf Creek that's impacting these families. You know, it's something that we couldn't foresee, Wolf Creek changing those boundaries, but I mean, we have to live with that reality that they changed that, which impacts our families less. So it was a meeting. There was some frustration expressed by those families, but I think they understand kind of what the options are and what's available to them.
So then the new boundary takes effect September 2024.
Correct.
I would like to see that area become formed. And I realize it's quite a bit of work on for these parents. But I would really like to see it become formed, so. It's more a Catholic education.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the fact that they cherish Catholic education. And they're so committed to their community. It'd be nice to try and accommodate them.
So is it, sorry, no, that area, is it like acreages? Or is it
Farms.
Farms, it's rural.
so? Would there be a possibility of more families moving in there?
That's what he was saying, that there are some families with younger children who have definitely expressed an interest that they would like to go to Catholic school.
And they are really committed to Catholic education.
They are. They work hard and do a lot of extra activities within the community, and they're at the school quite a bit. They've increased the membership in the parent council meeting, doubled it, I'd say. And we've seen men come to the meetings, which oftentimes you don't see. Yeah, they're not represented as well.
It'd be nice to.
Yes.
So two things, other comments, okay, two things that the ask is from the delegates is, one, they want to form, right? So maybe I will need that discussion to one, they want to form their formation, right? Which they do have that right as Catholic players in that division. And it's talking about 2 areas of formation. So again, that is their right to do that as a great parents. The second ask, that is the big one, is the one guaranteed busing. Right, guaranteed busing. With the addition of another family moving in there, to me that is not guaranteed yet, but they want guaranteed busing. How many students do we have in that area based on what is happening right now? 10. The logistic part is because we are not formed there as well, correct me if I'm wrong. We are not obliged and we can not send our buses in there because Wolf Creek already have their buses in there. So that's something for us.
Yeah, we have to be formed to have buses.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in regards to, you've broken it up nicely into 2 parts. So just to address the first part again, in regards to formation. I give full support to any group of parents that want to get together and go through the formation process. I know I heard what their ask was to ask the board for support in a consultant in helping them achieve that. I would like to defer that specific decision to the March meeting with the ask that administration bring us cost options. Is from what I understand, there's kind of a different levels of consultants in the work that they do, just a few cost options so that we can make an informed decision based on their ask, and that would be done in March. If that's acceptable.
That would give administrators a bit of time to get that together as far as cost options.
It's bad for the parents, okay. Again, that is what they are choosing as to how they will see some of these things together. What they need in that area. Any other comments with that so we can make?
We're deciding to make a decision about the cost option in March, perhaps we should make a motion today about transportation.
No, we can make a motion about transportation, we can guarantee. It is the steps that needs to occur, that is already informed, and that's what I've alluded to, right, based on the legislation and where everything is. We cannot go into a formed area, unformed area.
But I'm saying the parents don't want to go through all this to form it and then find out that we won't have a minimum number of students to bus. They'd like to know if 10 is the number that we're going to bus.
Okay.
That's what they're kind of asking before they go through the
Yeah.
work of being formed. We don't have to today, that is the option. That we can say 10 is the minimum number and.
So what's the
exactly
threshold?
grandfather.
So trustees, would you like to have that discussion or put that in tandem with discussion of knowing some of these specifics and the support of. Go ahead, Deb.
I'd like to move ahead with the discussion. And specifically in regards to transportation. I would hope that a decision be made about that portion, but I would understand to table it to March, but I think given the scenario and some of the information we already know about the situation, I'm ready to end the discussion
About the transportation.
just about the transportation. And it's very much a scenario of if the formation is successful, the board is willing to commit to these. Not presupposing what those decisions would be, but I'm ready to move ahead with that.
So, Mr. Laka, looking at the contracts, how much is a bus cost?
I don't have a figure for what. We only run in town in the code, we run in New Orleans. I don't know what a contractor might price out, or if we've got availability for a contractor, but. Off the top of my head, I would plan for about $70,000 for the cost.
And that's including the bus driver.
That's the
That's
cost of the
the-
contract.
As we also,
And that's the 40 passenger bus,
That'd be a 72
or
passenger.
72,
Yeah.
when we only need 10 seats.
Typically, what you find is there's very little differentiation for them to provide a smaller bus. The rates are not that much in proportionate to the size. And my experience with our current contractors, they prefer to, even though there's only 10 students on it, to run a 72 passenger bus because it's consistency within the operations of their fleet. And that bus can be transferred elsewhere within the utilization. So they might put a smaller bus on it, but they don't necessarily will differentiate the rate on that in that.
It means a loss of quite a few students to public home. It's 10 students. We're losing in each of the students, brings a certain amount of dollars with them to this, to our school.
So to trustee Miller's question, there was a guarantee of number of students. We know this is 10, that trustee will be willing to support transportation. That is guaranteed, or what's the number we're looking at?
I think I know in Bowling, it's 10. That is an emotion, but it is an agreement. So right now, we do have the 10. Guaranteed, you can stay at 10, you get larger.
It's small.
And It's not good to be bouncing back and forth either. It's 10 today, 10 this year, 7 next year.
But the question is, are trustees willing to guarantee that? But that's the way they need the
10 students.
to be formed, but they want the guarantee of us.
Well, if it were to be under 10. They still want a guarantee.
Regardless, they want the guarantee us.
Well, I
One,
don't
two,
know how
three
we can
students.
do that. I'm looking at it from a financial perspective. I know it's 10 kids and we would feel the same way too. But we also have to look at it from a financial aspect too.
Yeah,
Can we
always.
afford this?
What happens in Beaumont if it goes under 10?
They don't get a bus.
And that's just a known. Parents are okay with that, that's the way it is. They don't get a bus, but the parents get a certain amount of money
Yeah.
for transportation.
That's right. So we would be able to offer that to these individuals also.
But
I think there's another option, and I don't think this part of it would be decided today. I mean, I would be willing to support a bus for 10 students, minimum riders. But we have the option of charging a fee, right? To offset some of those costs, and that's always an option to us. I don't think we have all the numbers for that specific portion. But I would be willing to say I would support us for a minimum of 10 riders at this time, just to provide assurance to our Catholic families that they have access to Catholic education.
So you're saying it could be 10 students, you get a bus. If there's 9 students, there will be a cost involved.
if you couldn't attend, there will be a cost to it. So, would we agree then we have two things probably to have admin research to have transportation around there and the busing, how much the cost would be? If at all possible, right? Because those are some of the guarantees that will help us make this decision that we really has to, because we need to form the guarantee busing, and the board have the financial obligation to be good surely with the money we have, right? But that money, I know very well, will be coming from classrooms, should we go that route, right? So it would be very wise of us to have some of all of this information to make the best of the decision.
We could agree to busing 10 students without the added part of guaranteeing to the last student. We can say we'll bus 10 students and we're looking at the rest of it. But for now, we're guaranteed the 10 students, the same as they do with all of them. But as far as if there was less, then we're going to be looking at some decisions under that. I know this is what they asked for, but this could be what we're offering.
And then like the discussion is going, that's that how much are they willing to pay in addition to that?
Yeah.
Because the financial implication is huge. And I want the board to be aware of that as we move forward. Yeah, Mr. Michelle, go ahead.
Just a question for Ed. Are we able to get that kind of pricing without tendering the contract? So you're asking for a quote on a hypothetical
Just
run, which-
hypothetical information as to.
so that's my question, is making sure that we can meet your ask, because I'm not sure that we can. Thoughts?
My thought, I've got two thoughts, is one is what we might do is see if there's a contractor around who would be interested in taking a run. We talked about transportation driver shortages. That's part of our issue, is that contractors that we work in the area, because they have a shortage of drivers, are going to take on a new route. If they are, you might ask for a ballpark figure. Without prejudice, if you're familiar with that phrase, and say, what might that look like? Like that. But it wouldn't be something that we hold them to, just provide me with a ballpark. And so same as my 70,000 that I threw out today, it's a number that we throw out for discussion purposes. But until we tender and have a contract in place, it's not a guarantee. My first concern is whether the we be able to put a bus in that area and have a contractor bus fly on. Or given the nature of the market right. So I think we can do it, but there will be a lot of provisos on what that costs.
But we could say we will provide a bus with 10 students, providing we can find one to the best of our ability.
Well, I think before you make that commitment, it's a matter of knowing what you're walking into before you make a commitment about providing a bus. What you're saying now at this point is you're investigating what bus cost, if there's bus availability, and then what are the implications in terms of financial. Trustee Miller has talked about premium fee. If you look at something like a fee for an eligible rider, because I'm assuming that you're looking at this, is that a formation also occurred. Then what does that fee for eligible riders mean for other areas of the division where we have similar transportation? Well, similar transportation situations. We do have situations where we provide transportation to students to our schools outside of our home areas. That concept is not unique in our division here in the southeast of the whole, but you have to look at the implications of putting something like that in place. What does that mean for other areas of the division?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Just further, I know that the conversation about Beaumont kind of crept in. I think it is an important factor that, you know, what you're doing for one area might apply to another area, because parents of Beaumont have advocated for a bus as well with less than 10 students, right? And the division, although not, or the board, although not formally through motion, has, you know, communicated to administration to communicate to parents that 10 threshold. There was never any talk about what it could dip below. Primarily, the reason for that is because the thought was that, you know, once the 10 threshold is met for grade 10, that would build for successive years, because we would be adding a grade per year. Well, that bus, in theory, could go up to 30 students because you would be adding a grade for each of the high school years. So that context is a little bit different. There was no talk because of that kind of line of thinking that it would drop below 10, because we at the time thought that it would increase. But that is an important factor as well. Is to always keep in mind that the Beaumont parents have also advocated for transportation.
Did that increase as you thought it would? How long is that bus?
We haven't met the 10 threshold.
So
There's
it's
no
less
bus.
than 10.
There is no bus.
There is no bus.
Right now.
So here's what maybe I hope for something.
If I could add with Beaumont context. In terms of financial, we talked about that, and we appreciate the families here already attending following school, and if they're no longer attending, there's that loss. The context for Beaumont was that we would grow our student enrollments at VTK because the students coming from Beaumont would normally transfer straight into the public system. Here we would be retaining them, so there'd be an increase not only on the number of students at CTK, but in our divisional resources as well. So I think Beaumont, there are some things that actually are different as well with regards to those findings.
Wonderful. And that being said, that's where my mind is going. If Trustee Beth put in mind, let's note to discuss that at policy about transportation to remote areas, right? I'm just wanting to look into that because again, Beaumont as and Lacombe is coming in. Does that not look and make this in that we have a very formalized policy on books so that we are not sitting here debating this all the time when it comes to some of these acts, right? Because we have something formalized. So I see you shaking your head, Dr. Miller. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I guess I would see it within policy as a policy statement, overarching value statement, I guess, about providing transportation to our families in some way. There are things within certain acts that outlines transportation requirements or threshold or
But that's
You know,
all I'm saying, including.
whatever.
Looking at transportation.
In this specific scenario, I'm not sure necessarily that it would go to. I'm a little confused of why it would go to policy to try and help make this decision,
No,
rather than to go to the finance committee, if any committee, to review information to help make this decision. That's all, sorry.
I'm not saying policy should be making, not. This acts or request I'm putting out there is not in context with everything going on here right now. But the aftermath of all of these discussions that we did. So that has nothing to do with our decision on the code on this, but it's something that I'm asking if can be looked at to lessons of policy. Yes, definitely the financial applications will come with it if we have something going and look at it. That is all I'm saying. So then we have something in policy guiding some of the discussion or these acts into the future.
If there was a policy about a threshold being 10, we wouldn't be doing.
Right. Right. And then what are our obligations? Are we providing the funding to the parents? Like we do know we have that obligation. And is it 20 or whatever, then we set in a bus and then all of these. So it's just a generalized, formalized thing that we should be looking at, because again, we've done some of those in Beaumont through communication, but never formalize it as a policy for us. When the face of the board changes, and if something between policy that guides the next board to say, hey, here's a bomb area now coming, but this is what we have that we guide. That was what I was saying. Yeah, go ahead.
There are many administrative, that's an administrative angle. I don't think you would put the 10 in policy as an example. It would be a motion on the books, I think, that would indicate that. I don't know that you would write a board policy to that effect. There are many there are many board directed financial decisions, and they're not captured in policy. So I'm not sure that you would want to write in policy a threshold of 10.
I wasn't saying we write it in the threshold of 10 or all that, but let's have some policy statement in our policy guiding some of these discussions. That's all. So we can have a look.
So I'm not sure I'm following that line of thinking.
And you put. But
But
this
it
would
would be
be,
unusual. I've never seen that in another school division.
but this will be the last of acts coming to us, right? When it comes to some of these discussions and what do we do? Right? What is our policy that is guiding us when it comes to some of these acts from builders and non-fund builders? We don't have anything else. Let's put some thought to it. Can we move forward then, please? Okay, so are we agreeing next month we get this research and move forward on the decision making? Okay. All right, so at this time, I don't think we'll communicate anything to the parents until we have the thorough discussion next month and then send a formal decision as that is made.
So, Mr. Chair, would the board be supportive of communication with this delegation that the decision is being deferred to March?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Like 6.3. 4.2, sorry, 6.2. Yeah. Just in the, sorry.
Thank
Projects,
you,
yeah.
Mr. Chair. So just to report that the committee received no submissions from the board in regards to budget assumptions.
Right, so pretty much not enough money, so the status quo. All right, we will follow on then with 6.3, see what the interesting there.
Thank you. So just some background that the board had approved first and second reading of the previous bylaw, or the bylaw that was presented.
Yeah.
And there is some information in your package there, and that the recommendation moving forward, and the finance committee supports the recommendation of administration. And we have withdrawn the bylaw for consideration. So it's more of a for your information, but if there's any questions.
Any questions? I see none. All right. So we have committee reports attached. Trustee DeMarco not here, but if there are any questions or comments, I'm sure Mr. Bouchard will try, and Trustee Miller is here as well. Okay, nothing on advocacy. All right, long range. Trustee De La Serra.
Are there any questions? Report, it's in your package.
Yeah. Policy Committee, Trustee Burr.
Have the report in there.
Sorry, I wasn't capturing. So next meeting is the 27th
Yes.
at 3:30. Sorry. Long range, you have no set dates.
We do not.
Okay. All right, advocacy, do we have any next dates for your meeting? No.
I don't.
Skip, I see none in there. Okay, so policy is 27. That's just in 2 weeks. Okay, zone 2, 3. Any question, comments? Follow up with last meeting. Michael to see what are some of the stuff I earlier discussed. Okay, audit committee, April 3. Any questions there for the audit committee? Go ahead.
Thank you. The committee reviewed draft request for proposal package. What exactly does that mean? Is that quotes from auditors?
No, that's the, what we did review was what's expected, what we're asking the auditors for. We haven't received all those yet. I'm sure they're coming in.
I checked, we haven't posted
We
yet.
haven't posted yet, okay. So this is kind of what we're looking for and ideas about what they need to tell us. So that's what we went over.
So where it says the responses are to be submitted by March 23rd, that's the response from the auditor.
Yes,
Okay.
the respondents.
Respondents. And there'll be a few, maybe not too many, because we're over all of it.
Okay, so the next meeting is April 5th. Okay, finance committee. Any questions, comments? Trustee Miller, okay, March 3rd, the next meeting. Okay, ACSTA reports.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. this is Karen.
After the ACST reports.
Question,
Yeah, go ahead.
is there been any update as far as anything?
Yes, there has, and I believe it is. My apologies if that's not in the courses of you. Edmonton Catholic has returned. The ACSCA. For long and I guess prosperous efforts on behalf of the board and the executive. And they actually attended the meeting. We had a board meeting on Friday night and their representative was here. Which is why we had to have a special board meeting of the ACSTA earlier that week to make a decision. Welcome back.
I'm very happy. That's what it is.
And that email was circulated.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes us into item number 8. Which is an in-camera item, so. As per policy 7, 5.6 other topics, can I have someone move us into in-camera? Okay, go ahead, President, and everybody else, go ahead, everybody else, this.